Hi, hello, it is me, Max, your local trans bookworm, welcoming you back to my little corner of the internet. I am here for a little mini summer TBR video. Just gonna talk about some of the books that I plan on reading this summer. Here in June and July would be my goal to read these books in. I am, as of the day that I'm recording this, I will be moving in like 2 weeks. Or at the very least, I'm getting the keys to the new apartment. We're getting the keys to the new apartment in 2 weeks. So all 350 plus books that I own have to be packed up. I did even cut down on some of the books that I own. Behind me, I have 2 piles instead of 3 behind me now. It's still a lot of books to pack up and move. As part of my moving prep, because I know I will still want to be reading books, I have decided that since I won't know how long a bunch of my books are going to be packed up or like what my situation will be, I'm setting aside 10 books that I want to read for June and July. I am hoping that when we move, I will be able to get another bookshelf so that I won't end up with piles on the ground of books. But, we'll see what happens. The goal is really 4 shelves total, but I have to obviously prioritize some other expenses first. Once I'm settled in, I will give you a tour of my shelves, whether that's just the 2, 3, or, hopefully 4 eventually. But I have made my little book list, my little TBR. I broke it down in little categories because, it satisfies that organization itch in my brain, and I don't know that I will read these books all in the order that I'm presenting them to you, but I wanted to present them in a little bit of an organized way because, like I said, scratches that organization itch. We're gonna get into it. This little section is the Saint of Steel. If you watched the start of the year reading wrap-up video, you may recall that back in February, I read Paladin's Grace. That is the first book in the Saint of Steel series. I am currently reading Paladin's Strength, so books number 3 and 4, Paladin's Hope and Paladin's Faith, respectively, are the first books that I have on that TBR for myself. The premise for the entire Saint of Steel series is basically that this god, named the Saint of Steel, suddenly dies, and his warriors, paladins, in the moment of losing him, are overcome with grief and rage and are taken by something they called the battle tide that fully causes them to lose consciousness, not in they go unconscious, but there's no conscious connection between the brain and the actions. They black out essentially as they continue doing stuff, that stuff being lashing out and destroying everything and everyone in their path until either they are cut down in battle or otherwise restrained. And in the aftermath of that, there's only a handful of those paladins left. This series stars 4 of those paladins in the years after his death, after the saint's death, as they have to navigate life unconnected to their god and, some other challenges. There's a lot of murder and bandits and magic and romantic opportunities. As I talked about in my start of the year reading wrap-up, I personally am a huge fan of paladins. I love them in D&D, I love them in this. Just the idea of a person who has chosen to commit their entire being to one specific cause, whether that's accepting in this series, accepting the call from a god to, serve them and honor them, or in D&D, swearing an oath and following the tenets of that oath, as well as, a divine connection in most cases. I think there's a lot of really interesting storylines that you can explore with that, which is especially why I like the Saint of Steel series, because what happens when you have people who are dedicated to the cause that suddenly lose the divine connection that is, powering them? So I think it's a really interesting concept, and I really am really excited to keep reading. Paladin's Grace was super fucking funny, and Paladin's Strength so far has had that same sense of humor and charm to it, and I'm excited for both Hope and Faith. Hope is actually an Achillean romance, so it's men loving men. As a man who is attracted to men, who plays a trans man paladin who's attracted to men in my D&D sessions. I'm very excited to see T. Kingfisher's take on that perspective in this series. Hold on. We gotta hydrate. Folks, hydrate or dihydrate. It's so unbelievably hot in this apartment. So unbelievably hot in this apartment. Our AC is busted as hell. Cannot wait to move in a couple weeks. But back to it. I, along this journey, am taking a little adventure into nonfiction. I personally tend to stick pretty strictly to fiction, only occasionally venturing into nonfiction like every other year. The last nonfiction book I read was in 2024. But I own a lot of specifically queer nonfiction that I would really like to read from my collection. So for this, I have put not one, but two different nonfiction novels into this TBR. First being The Love That Dares, an anthology of queer love letters, edited/collected by Rachel Smith and Barbara Vesey. I think that's how you say it. It is a collection of actual real-life letters sent by people either suspected, confirmed, or like assumed queer throughout history. People like Oscar Wilde, Audre Lorde, Emily Dickinson, Walt Whitman, and then also just like regular everyday folks who sent their lovers letters. This one's been on my list for a while because I just really like learning about how queer people existed in the past when it was super dangerous to be like open about being queer. Obviously it's still dangerous now in the state of the world that we live in, but to the degree that past dangers were, it's very, I just like learning my history, you know? I also think it will be a good kind of toe in the water to get back into the nonfiction genre, because since it's letters that people sent interspersed with like biographies about those people, it will likely be a lot more like energetic and personable in its narration, as opposed to the last nonfiction book I read. It was Transgender History, The Roots of Today's Revolution by Susan Stryker. It was very dry in its narration style. I don't regret reading it because it gave me a lot of really cool information about trans history in America, but it was very dry and it was kind of a slog to get through. So I'm hoping that this book is going to be a little bit more engaging. As well as the next book, which is How Far the Light Reaches by Sabrina Imbler. This is a book about exploring 10 different sea creatures interspersed with anecdotes from the author's real life experiences as a queer mixed-race science and conservation journalist in a largely white, male-dominated field. I fucking love the ocean, okay? I love the ocean. I have 3 different shark tattoos on my leg, and, you know, hopefully that leg will become just a full, I guess, sleeve of ocean and marine life tattoos in the future. But I really, really love the ocean, and I know in my heart of hearts that it is a very queer place. I can just feel it. And one of the reviews that really sold me on this book was, Imbler shows us that the ocean, in all its mystery and dazzling glory, is queer. So I'm excited to have, you know, my theory proven. Continuing on our summer TBR journey, we're gonna take a little detour into the young adult demographic. Oddly enough, despite owning a lot of young adult novels on my shelves, I have yet to read any YA this year. So, you know, why not change that? I have 3 young adult novels on my TBR, 2 sapphic romances, and 1 Achillean horror. The first one, despite them being one of, if not my favorite author, I have yet to read Casey McQuiston's YA novel, I Kiss Shara Wheeler. So we're fixing that. This book is about Miss Chloe Green, a senior at a Christian academy in Alabama, who is aiming to be the valedictorian. Her only real competition in that is the prom queen, Shara Wheeler. A month before graduation, Shara kisses Chloe and then vanishes. In trying to find her, Chloe discovers that Shara had also kissed the quarterback and the neighborhood bad boy. The only connection between the 3 of them is the kiss and the cryptic notes that Shara left behind before disappearing, with a unusual allyship between Chloe, the quarterback, and the bad boy. It's a race against the clock to find Shara before graduation. Like I said, love Casey McQuiston. Their romances are truly some of my favorite books that I have read ever. They inspire me in my own writing when writing my own queer romances. Like, their books are really good. I've recommended them to friends who have both cried while reading those novels, which, same, I get it. So I'm very excited to see how CMQ tackles the YA demographic compared to their adult novels. Next one is Playing for Keeps by Jennifer Dugan. It is baseball season, so sapphic baseball romance novel, here I come. I'm a huge baseball fan, by the way, so I'm very excited for this. I'm not wearing my typical, baseball hat. I'm coming to the cottage. If you have seen or read Heated Rivalry, you'll know what that's a reference to, and if you haven't, do that. They're very good. It's a very good series. But back to Playing for Keeps. It is a novel about June, a star pitcher for her baseball club, who is looking to be recruited to the college level, and she's also currently playing through a injured shoulder because she's trying to play enough to be scouted for college teams. It's also about Ivy, who is this student umpire who's not doing it just for money on the side. She wants to officiate at a professional level someday, despite the fact that her parents really want her to go to college instead. At their first game together, Ivy ejects June from the game, which sparks a brief rivalry that turns into friendship and then something more. However, there are rules against umpires and players dating. June's shoulder is getting worse as she continues to overuse it, and somehow a rival discovers the two of them, kissing, assumedly. I don't know how the secret's discovered because I haven't read it yet, but a lot of things are seemingly getting in the way of Ivy and June having a happy relationship. And, I guess I'm gonna find out how they deal with all of that. I have been aware of Jennifer Dugan for a while. I've seen a lot of her, sapphic YA novels in bookstores when I, browse. But this is gonna be my first venture into her work, and I'm excited that it's baseball. Like I said, it is baseball season. I have been watching my beloved Philadelphia Phillies be mediocre. I wish they were better. They're not having a great start to the season. We don't need to talk about it. But this year is especially exciting because the inaugural season of the Women's Pro Baseball League is starting in August, and I'm very excited. So I thought it was very fitting to read a sapphic romance novel about a woman baseball player. So yeah, I'm excited for this one. Last on the YA portion of the summer TBR is Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews. This is a horror novel about a high school senior named Andrew who, as an escape from the real world, writes a lot of twisted fairy tales and stories, and his best friend Thomas frequently will sketch in a notebook the drawings of the monsters in those stories. But upon returning to their private school, Thomas and Andrew's twin sister Dove start acting really weird and distant. No matter how much Andrew tries to lean on Thomas to figure out what's going on with his sister, Thomas is pulling away from him, not even interested in sketching those monsters from the stories. And so one night, Andrew decides to try and figure out what's going on, and he follows Thomas to the out-of-bounds woods on the school property and finds Thomas fighting a monster that looks like Thomas's drawings of the monsters Andrew describes. The two boys start fighting these monsters by night, but as their connection starts to go stronger, so do the monsters. I've followed C.G. Drews online for a long time, and the thing I'm most excited about for this novel is something that they've described as botanical horror, and that is such a fascinating concept to me, because the horror novel element in this book being plants and nature, not even something I would conceive as being horrific, I'm not usually a horror guy. It's not a genre I gravitate to naturally. Andrew Joseph White novels notwithstanding, he's one of my favorite authors. I'll get into it eventually. I was really feeling, for some reason, I kind of just wanted something spooky. So I decided to put a horror novel on this little TBR. I really hope I'm talking over these sirens that are in the background and you can't hear them. For the final branch of my little TBR for summer, I have gone back to the adult demographic. 2 novels and 1 novella. They're all in like slightly different genres, just for, you know, a little variety, a little spice. The first is the novella, This Is How You Lose the Time War, by Amal El-Mutar and Max Gladstone. This is, I think, just under 200 pages. It's a science fiction novella about 2 rival agents in this like war that spans time and space. One of them is Red, part of this technotopia, and the other is Blue, who is part of, as the like blurb on the back of the book describes, a single vast consciousness that is embedded in all living matter. Can't wait to find out what that means. They truly have nothing in common with each other except they are alone and the best at what they do. The story is told through these letters back and forth between the 2 of them that like start taunting at first but then develop into something more real. I have heard really, really good things about this novella, and I'm very excited to read it. It's this, like, it's a sapphic love story spanning the far reaches of time and space, you know? Also, another thing that really sold me on it was V.E. Schwab's, like, author recommendation, author blurb on the back of the book that just reads, holy shit, this was good. That's pretty convincing. I don't know. I love V.E. Schwab's writing, so if she thinks it's good, I'm here for it. Next up, we've got a historical sapphic romance, A Rare Find, by Joanna Lowell. Joanna Lowell. I got it. This is about Elfrida Marsden, a aspiring female archaeologist in Regency-era England who finds an ancient amulet on her family's estate that could be like her big break into archaeological society. However, in comes Georgie Redmayne, a popular, carefree woman, utterly bored by the countryside, who also happens to be Elfrida's childhood nemesis. And when the 2 of them literally collide, the amulet is lost, and with it, Elfrida's chance at a proper excavation. And so, in a quest for major archaeological discovery on Elfrida's part, and money on Georgie's part, the 2 form an unlikely alliance, and as they embark on more and more side quests on their adventure, something other than hatred begins to bloom between the 2 of them. I really, really loved A Sure Thing, another romance novel by Joanna Lowell. It's A Sure Thing. I have it on the shelf still. That book was about a female botanist and a trans man painter who the botanist wants to commission the painter for botanical drawings and paintings of like things that she discovered or like for her paper. And the painter is kind of lost his spark after kind of having to leave the sisterhood of like artists that he was a part of. So in exchange for doing those paintings, he asks the botanist to participate in a cycling adventure around the coast of England. It was very, very cute. I really liked that novel a lot. It was also super like respectful and knowledgeable about the queer people in that era, especially trans people. So I'm excited to see more of that like knowledge and respect in this like sapphic historical romance. The final book on my little summer TBR is The Faceless Old Woman Who Secretly Lives in Your Home by Joseph Fink and Jeffrey Cranor. This is a Welcome to Night Vale novel. If you are a queer person who likes Gravity Falls and existed on the internet, and especially on Tumblr, since like 2014, 2015, you have definitely heard of Welcome to Night Vale. If you are not a queer person who likes Gravity Falls and have existed on the internet, and specifically Tumblr since 2014, 2015, and have not heard of Welcome to Night Vale, let me tell you what it is about. Welcome to Night Vale is a fiction podcast about the fictional town of Night Vale, where the dog park is off limits to humans, dogs, everybody except the hooded figures that gather there. There is a mysterious, tiny society underneath a bowling alley, or underneath a lane in the bowling alley. The librarians are dangerous and feral creatures that you should absolutely avoid at all costs. It's a fascinating little town, and it is all told through radio broadcasts from a fascinating man named Cecil, and it is a joy to listen to. I have only personally listened to a small chunk of their massive catalog, and I really love it. The Faceless Old Woman Who Secretly Lives in Your Home is a fan favorite character who pops up occasionally in the podcast, and this novel explores her backstory and how she became the faceless old woman who secretly lives in your home. On the podcast, she's voiced by Mara Wilson, who is most well known for playing Matilda in the movie Matilda, and I love that. It's great. I just love the faceless old woman. She's such a fascinating character to me, so I'm really excited to learn about her backstory, how she became a faceless old woman, and why is she living in my home. But yeah, it's a slightly fantastical, slightly horror-y, real weird novel, I'm sure. Welcome to Night Vale is a real weird situation. I'm sure this story will follow in its footsteps. But yeah, that is my mini summer TBR. The goal is, like I said, to read this in June and July. I am hoping to be fully settled in our new apartment by then. I have some traveling I have to do at the end of July, so the goal is to kind of read all of this and be settled by the time I have to do that traveling. But also in August, I have a bunch of anticipated reads releasing this year in August, so I hope to read these before that happens so that August comes and I can read all the new reads to my heart's content, buy all of the books that I am restraining myself from buying in June and July. I'm very excited about a lot of things going forward. I'm excited for the new apartment, moving in with my friends who I love very dearly and I've lived with for the past 2 years, have known for nearly 4, are graciously allowing me to borrow a camera, lights, and a microphone so I do not have to film or record audio on just my little dinky iPhone. It's not dinky, it's an iPhone, but still. I am very grateful for my friends who are helping me on this little creative journey that I am really excited about. Thank you to everybody who has been watching, who's been commenting. They've all been really lovely comments that, sorry I haven't replied to. I'm just a little bit anxious about it all still. But thank you to everyone who's also subscribed. It's been really lovely to embark on this journey that has been a thing that I've wanted to do for so long, but anxiety and procrastination has just stopped me from doing, and be so warmly welcomed. So absolutely huge thank you to everybody who has shown up for me in that way, whether that's the real life friends who I know I've told about this, or strangers on the internet who are just here to listen to one trans guy talk about all of the stuff that he likes to read. It's very appreciated, and I'm very glad that, like I said, I've been welcomed so warmly. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited to be reading more. I had a really packed May in terms of reading. I read a lot in May. I had 7 books total that I finished in May. The first part of the month was not so fun, but the second half of the month, I had a really good time with everything I read. So I'm excited for the reading wrap up where I get to talk about all of those books. If I keep up this pace of reading, I may have to figure out my filming setup in the new apartment sooner than I thought and make a reading wrap up video. Who knows? I'm not sure what my next video will be or when it'll come out, because I just don't know when I'll be able to film, but hopefully it'll be in a better apartment that is better, well air conditioned. It's so hot in my room right now, but better air conditioned and just a better setup for me. I'm really excited for it, and I'm excited to have more space for all of my books. I've lived in the same area of LA the entire time I've lived here, so it's going to be really exciting to move to a different spot and be living with my friends who, like I said, I love very dearly. Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you again to everyone watching, everyone who has watched, commented, subscribed. It means a lot. If you want to keep up with me, you can always, subscribe, but I also have an Instagram, Local Trans Bookworm, same handle as my YouTube channel. You can also follow me on Storygraph. It's like Goodreads, but better. And not owned by Amazon, but I track all of my reading right there on Storygraph. Same thing, same handle, Local Trans Bookworm. Thank you very much to everyone who has even just given a 5-second watch. I appreciate it. Much love and happy reading to you all. Bye, everybody.